Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Sergeant Mel Rhodes. We warmly welcome the family of Sergeant Victor Alexander Douglas McPhee, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Alsfords Point Public School. From South Australia, St Michael's Lutheran Primary School, Harndorf. Happy Valley Primary School. Prescott North Primary School, Paravista. And from Western Australia, Treetops Montessori Primary School, Darlington. I invite you all now to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
son of Archibald and Sarah McPhee. After finishing his education, he went on to work as a bank accountant. McPhee enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 16th of September 1914, just weeks after the outbreak of the First World War. The 24-year-old was allotted to the field ambulance, which, as part of the medical corps, was mostly made up of stretcher bearers and drivers. Victor's brother James, who was also a bank accountant, soon followed in his footsteps, also joining the field ambulance. The brothers left Melbourne together aboard the troop ship Berrima just a few days before Christmas 1914, bound for the Middle East. After time in the training camps in Egypt, the McPhees were on to Gallipoli, landing late on the 25th of April. At the end of July, Victor became ill with colitis and was not able to rejoin his unit until late October. Shortly after returning to the peninsula, he was struck down with mumps, but stayed on Gallipoli until the evacuation of Anzac in December. Back in Egypt, the AIF went through a period of expansion and reorganisation, preparing to take part in the fighting on the Western Front. After recovering from a variety of illnesses received while living and working in the unsanitary conditions at Gallipoli, Victor McPhee was sent to France in June 1916 as part of the newly raised 4th Field Ambulance. He was promoted to corporal shortly afterwards as the 4th Division first moved into the nursery sector near Armentières. Its stay there was brief, however, and soon it was accompanying the 1st and 2nd Divisions to the Somme sector, engaging in fighting at Pozières, Moquet and Fleur. The bitter winter of 1916 and 1917 took its toll on the men, and McPhee was admitted to hospital with bronchitis the day after Christmas and evacuated to England shortly afterwards. After his recovery and some leave, he returned to duty. McPhee was enjoying spending some leave time in England again in March 1918, but was recalled after 3 days. The German spring offensive was underway and the fighting in France was fierce. On the 10th of April 1918, just a few weeks after McPhee had returned to the front, he was killed by heavy shelling around Eberturn, where the 4th Field Ambulance was established a stretcher-bearer relay post. He was buried nearby at Coin Communal Cemetery in France. Victor's brother James was awarded the Military Medal for bravery while in charge of a stretcher squad during the 3rd Battle of Ypres, also known as Passchendaele, and would return home to Australia after the war. Victor McPhee was one of the thousands of Australians who served quietly and inconspicuously and who gave their lives in the process. He was 27 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Victor Alexander McPhee, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you all for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.